for much of the 90s. I was making travel documentaries for Travelodge and Channel 4, which took me to places like Albania, not long after Albania had finally shed communism. What an extraordinary place that was. I made the very first documentary film made by any television company from the West inside North Korea in 1995 or 6. Romania, not that long after the Ceausescu's had fallen. I remember going into the office one day and them saying to me, where would you like to go in the next series? I said Mozambique, and the next thing I knew, we were off to bloody Mozambique, whilst the civil war was still going on. And Kyrgyzstan, it was one of those countries that emerged with the collapse of the Soviet Union. No one had heard of Kyrgyzstan. Not even the Kyrgyz had heard of Kyrgyzstan when I first went there. So I was going to some extraordinary places and making these, I like to think, extraordinary films. And of all the television jobs that I've done over the years, if I were asked which programme are you most proud of, I would have to say it would be the North Korea one, because it was such a first. I pestered the North Korean authorities before they let us in on that occasion for 7 years to let me go in, and for 7 years they said no. But you can't look for logic with the North Koreans and these decisions. And to this day, I have no idea why they turned around in 1995 or 96 and said to me, yes, on this occasion, Mr. Andy, you can come in. And what's more, yes, you can bring a television crew from Channel 4 with you and you can make a documentary. But they did, they let us in. And my God, it was an experience. And I've been back 3 times since. And the reason I've been back 3 times since is every time I go, I get back and I can't actually believe that what I've just experienced was in fact reality. So I have to keep going back for another look. Lots of people express surprise that I made an apparent career leap in the late 80s, early 90s from radio DJ into foreign correspondence. But it didn't surprise me because I'd always been the instinctive journalist and the amateur historian. The whole business with live music, rock and roll, and the intervention of television and radio was just an interruption, really, to something that had been going on long before I got involved in those things. And what I saw as my return to it in the late 80s was just a continuation after that interruption. But I just happened to be doing it on an international level rather than on a local newspaper level. Deep down, it was something I'd always wanted to do. And I also found I wasn't bored doing my Radio 1 programmes, not at all. In fact, on the contrary, it was very, very rewarding. I was in that very lucky position of being the only other person on Radio 1 apart from John Peel who had a free hand in choosing his own music. But I did feel I wasn't being pushed enough, or I wasn't pushing myself enough. And we were living through, at then, extraordinary times. The world was in probably a sort of spin cycle as turbulent as it had been at the end of the 1960s, which was a period I grew up in, and that's when I became aware of the world, and all those dramatic events of 1968-69 had got me fired up and made me very politically aware and journalistically aware. And when it came round again, a similar period in the late 80s, I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be an eyewitness to historical events. I've always been a big believer of the baptism by fire, the in at the deep end approach, and that was true with foreign journalism when I decided to go back into journalism. The place at the time which made 1988-89, which made most people recoil, even journalist pals of mine, when I mentioned I was thinking of going there, was Haiti in the Caribbean. The place fascinated me, and I'd read Graham Greene's The Comedians as well about Haiti in the mid-60s. So I took myself off to Haiti, and I think it was late 89, and it certainly was a baptism by fire. I would be dishonest if I denied that there's a certain amount of romance that there isn't a certain amount of romance in the foreign correspondence thing. But for me, it's mainly that eyewitness to history thing, and it is a privilege to be able to see world-shattering events.